Folks, we'll be starting the meeting in approximately a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to take a seat real quick. I'd like to call this meeting to order. April 16th, 2018 at 6 p.m. We'll start tonight's meeting with an invocation by Assistant Pastor Jess McCurran of Coastline Calvary Chapel.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. What a privilege to be here, and thanks for inviting us to come. Let's bow our heads and pray. Father in heaven, what a blessing it is, Lord, to come before you. And Lord, we just are grateful for who you are, and Lord, we have access to you at any moment of the day through your Son Jesus. And Lord, I just want to pray and give thanks to these men and women in this council, in this room. Lord, I pray for great wisdom for the task ahead. I pray you give them a great heart, Lord, and for the people, Lord, how to serve them best. And Lord, I pray that everything they put their hands and their minds to, Lord, you bless. So Lord, may this meeting be a blessing and pleasing to you. And Lord, again, give them all the wisdom they need as they make these great decisions. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Amen.
All right, we're going to start this afternoon's meeting. It's been a long day. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor, I have one amendment to the agenda. I'm pulling item 8GI or 8G1 under my name.
And Mayor, I sent the council an email earlier today just informing y'all that if Gulf Power agreed to the draft extension agreement, then we had agreed to request the council to pull item 4D from consideration tonight, and I would ask that y'all do that too, if that's possible.
Yeah, I'll do it as a member of council if I could pull 4D.
Anyone else?
I'll second those changes if that's necessary.
Okay, we have two motions and a second to both motions. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the agenda? Unanimous, ayes have it. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes of January 16, 2018, regular city council meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Unanimous, ayes have it. All right. Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation of recognizing the 2018 Arbor Day. At this point, I'd like to call up Ms. Firth. Are you here? Is she here? Yes, she is. I'd like to ask Ms. Lisa Firth of the Recreation Department and any members of the Parks and Recreation Committee to meet me at the podium for reading of the Arbor Proclamation. Yeah, just if you'd like to get on either side of me. That's all right. Yep, I get to do all my whereases. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, reducing heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. I like sitting in trees. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and to beautify our communities. They are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Gary Jarvis, on behalf of the Destin City Council, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Destin. And all citizens are urged to support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and that further all citizens are urged to plant trees to gladden hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. Ms. Firth, would you like to make a comment?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, all these members here, we're missing a couple, but they've worked very hard. And we are celebrating on Friday, April 27th, 10 a.m. We are planting we're not real sure yet, a tree, but Principal Al Gardner is going to make that suggestion on what tree we're going to plant, okay, and where we're going to put it, at the Destin Elementary School, okay? So come on out, 10 a.m., and, oh, being the mayor, this is your first Arbor Day. Here's your hat. You can wear that while you're sitting in the tree.
It's green, too. It's different. I'll share it with you.
Yeah, who was that? Yes, you should all come. Here you go. Thanks.
Next, under the proclamations, recognition, special presentations, we have an EDC update from Nathan Sparks, the EDC Executive Director.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Nathan Sparks with the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. It's hard to believe it's been yet another quarter since I came before you, and the composition of the council has changed since I was last before you. So I'd like to start this evening by congratulating Mayor Jarvis and Councilman Overdyer on your election. I'd like to also congratulate Councilwoman Ramswell and Councilman Braden on your re-election. It's great to be before you this evening, and what I'd like to do this evening, as is customary, is provide you with a little glimpse into what's been happening at the EDC over the past quarter, and I'll even interweave a couple of nuggets about where we're headed in the future. So you all should have the supporting documentation that was provided to Ms. Lejeune, and I'll refer to that. I won't read this to you because that could get rather laborious, but I did want to draw your attention to a couple of items within the memorandum that went to Ms. Lejeune. Specifically, I'd like to talk a bit about our website, and you know, a lot of businesses find our community through our website. Our website was re-envisioned and rebuilt late last year by BitWizards, a local business that we're very proud to call one of our investors at the EDC, and they did such a good job that they decided to submit this for an Addy Award, which I have come to learn is kind of like the Grammys or the Academy Awards or what have you, the Oscars. And the Addy Award was something that was a bit of a surprise to us, but it turned out to be a very good surprise. We were awarded a Silver Addy Award for the Florida EDC website. And that's important because it gives us some additional recognition. It obviously is a third-party endorsement of what we're doing, both in terms of the content we're providing, but especially the visual representation of our community. And keep in mind, this website is a front door step to our business community. We have some great websites that tell the tourism story of our community, but this is an opportunity. This website presents a forum for companies to learn more about the sites and the buildings and the workforce and the demographics and the various assets that companies value when they're considering expanding or relocating to an area. So it's very important that that website be up to date, which we do, I think, a pretty good job of keeping ours up to date, but it's also important that we have our information presented in an easy-to-find, mobile-friendly environment. And that's one reason we shifted to a new website format. We wanted folks to be able to pull up information about our community wherever they are in the world, whether that's on a smartphone or a laptop in an internet cafe halfway across the world. We wanted them to be able to find Okaloosa County and the communities of Okaloosa County. So now our website is mobile responsive, so if you, at your leisure, would like to visit it, it's florida-edc.org. And one new feature that we've unveiled since the award was presented to us is some additional zooming capabilities. So now if you click on the industrial park map, you can actually find that that's interactive, and you can click on, for instance, the Destin Industrial Park. You can zoom in using a Google Zoom feature and learn more about the surrounding area. We're finding that projects are more data-driven than ever, so whatever we can do to give them information about what surrounds the area they're focused on is certainly going to benefit us. I'll also mention that another component we're looking to add to the website here in short order is a talent attraction piece. You know, right now in Okaloosa County, unemployment is very low, just north of 2%. And that's a challenge, as we know. Many of you are business people who know the challenge of hiring qualified talent in a very low unemployment environment. So we've taken some cues from some national trends we're seeing, and we've integrated a talent attraction component that we'll be looking to unveil here in the coming weeks, which will basically provide smart people from all over the world the opportunity to learn about job openings, specifically in the STEM-related industries. So the science, technology, engineering, and math positions, defense contracting, program management, manufacturing, the list goes on, engineering, of course. There are a lot of those openings right here in Okaloosa County that pay extremely well. And so getting some of the best and the brightest from other places to come here, and obviously we've got something pretty powerful to sell in terms of our wonderful quality of life, we feel like that could only benefit us if we are able to attract some of that top talent to come here and make their life in our community. So more to come on that. You're among the first to hear about that officially, but once we have that up and running for your perusal, we'll make sure we get a link out so you can test that out for us, and certainly we welcome your feedback. We have been busy on the marketing trail since I was last before you. Specifically, we've had 2 marketing events where we're out at trade shows presenting Okaloosa County and specific sites and buildings and opportunities to locate in our area. We have traveled as far away as Washington State and as close by as Orlando here just last week at an aviation event. We're finding that the things that seem to resonate with the companies we're talking with right now are our low tax structure. We continue to really hammer that because there are a lot of states that we're competing with or that we're targeting right now that can't really say that. And I can tell you I had one meeting with a company from Illinois and another meeting with a company from New York State last week in Orlando at the trade show I attended, and the conversation went extremely well given the tax environment that those 2 states impose on their businesses. And so those are things we need to continue to amplify. But another key component that I'm finding is our military talent and the transitioning military specifically. Some of you served, and thank you for that. But that's something we need to tell a story in a more comprehensive way about. The fact that we do have military talent, 1,600, you've heard, men and women who separate from our military installations each year here in Okaloosa County alone, and 6,000 region-wide. We've got to find ways to get that message out that we have a pipeline of talent that is coming directly from our military installations. And many of those folks, as we know, have fallen in love with living in paradise. Many of them could be compelled to stay here for the right opportunity. Many of them become entrepreneurs in our community and are compelled to stay here. And we need to do everything within our power collectively to harness that opportunity. I know you all agree with me because I've talked about that individually with many of you. I do want to pass out our annual report, which is a 2017 annual report. This is the meeting when I customarily hand this out, so if I could approach the dais here. So the document that's being passed down again is our 2017 annual report, and there are a couple of items that I want to draw your attention to as those are coming down the way there. First and foremost, you'll notice the format is largely the same as you've seen in recent years for the EDC annual report. We have an approach that we think tells the story as comprehensively as possible, but without getting into the minutia. So if you look down at the bottom, you'll see the number of marketing events we've been undertaking, our total leads, the number of projects that we've opened over the past 3 years. The site visits that we've experienced and the numbers of projects landed. So this kind of gives you the perspective that it is, it's extremely important for us to get up to the plate. I'm a baseball guy, so I like to use analogies that are baseball related. The more opportunities we get at the plate to propose on a project or an investment opportunity, the greater the odds of success. So you can see that we had 33 site visits here in the past couple of years, and 9 projects landed throughout Okaloosa County. So again, the more opportunities we get lead to obviously the number of site visits being increased, and then in turn the number of projects will only grow. I did want to draw your attention to the success spotlights. This is a new section this year, and the second spotlight that you'll see there relates directly to the city of Destin. This is the fishing industry FAM tour event that we co-hosted with the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce and with you all, the city of Destin, and with Gulf Power last year. This was a great success where we brought in, as you may recall, some industry executives that we had interfaced with at ICAST. And Captain Jarvis, I know you know all about ICAST. This is an event that was new for us last year, the ICAST event itself. And then obviously we took that opportunity to develop the partnership with you all and with Gulf Power and with the Chamber to invite them here to experience the best that Destin has to offer during the Destin Fishing Rodeo. And so while they were here, they had the opportunity, for those of you who weren't involved in this, they had an opportunity to interface with our local college presidents. They had the opportunity to learn about our workforce, the opportunity to see our community, both places to live as well as places to locate their facilities. We had a great first run at this, a lot of positive feedback. You may remember, those of you who've been on council for a while know that I presented a survey where we surveyed the folks that attended that event and asked them whether their perspective was enhanced or improved on Destin's ability to accommodate their specific industries, and without exception, all of our attendees said that it was. So the picture you see there was taken at the Destin Fishing History Museum, where we had a great breakfast with our attendees to sort of kick things off. And that's an event that we continue to hear good things about. Obviously, we're in constant contact with those who attended, and as many of you are aware, some of those folks have actually suggested other companies that we may want to speak with. So the fishing industry effort is still very much part of our overall strategy set, and we look forward to continuing to move that forward with you. It is, we believe, a very Destin-centric strategy. Obviously, given the nature of the world's luckiest fishing village, we feel that's our greatest asset to talk about with that sector. So, moving on to an item on the military side. And this gets to some of the strategic initiatives we've had since I was last before you. We did a trip to D.C. With our Defense Support Initiatives, which you know is one of our committees under the EDC. This was an opportunity to go up and interface with the congressional delegation. This event was held back February 6th and 7th. And it's an opportunity for us to interface with not only our congressional delegation, but also senior leadership at the Pentagon. We've been doing this as the Northwest Florida Defense Coalition in a 5-county way for the past several years. And we find that a lot of good conversation and awareness building happens as a result of this. You all know that our military commanders can't necessarily go up to D.C. and advocate themselves, but we can do that on their behalf, and we can advocate for the missions that are here in Okaloosa County that obviously benefit our overall economic fabric. And that's exactly what we do with this event. Obviously, there were a couple of hot burning issues this year, one of those being the possibility of offshore oil exploration and drilling. And so we continue to be involved in those discussions with folks in D.C. We all know that there was an announcement that obviously Secretary Zinke had met with Governor Scott, and Florida was off the table. Well, that was good news, certainly, off the table, I should say, for oil drilling, but we can't take our eye off the ball. We have to remain vigilant because these things are continuing to be talked about, and we know that the political winds can shift. So we're continuing to amplify not only, of course, the tremendous impact that we have, favorable impact from our tourism economy, but also from the Gulf Range, and the fact that so many missions here are here because of the Gulf Range, and without that range and the full capabilities that exist in an unfettered way without oil exploration, the economic benefits certainly wouldn't be what they are. And so those are things that I know we all hold dear. I will touch on some project activity. On February 13th, you all know that we had the opportunity as a community to celebrate the announcement that Allegiant Airlines was set to make the Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport a permanent base of operations. What that meant for us, what that means for us, is 66 new high-wage jobs in excess of $70,000 a year, average wages. It also meant that we received some additional routes for folks to come and experience all that our area has to offer. And so that was a great day for Okaloosa County. Certainly it was a team effort. The Tourism Development Council, the Okaloosa County Board of Commissioners, and others were heavily involved in that, including, of course, the Okaloosa Airports Department. And certainly that's a gift that we'll continue to keep giving as folks come here from all over the country now, literally, when you look at Allegiant's network to experience Destin. Beyond that, I did want to request that you all give consideration to who your new representative will be on our Business Leadership Council. The EDC has a space held for you all. That space had been held by Mayor Fisher. Previously, it was held by Councilman Foreman. And right now, we don't have an appointee from the city. We'd very much welcome one. You all are a great partner to us. Our Business Leadership Council, as you know, meets 6 times a year. And we are set to meet next on May 17th. So certainly would put that forward for your consideration, whether it's now or later. That's obviously up to you all, but we would welcome having a representative from city leadership on our Business Leadership Council. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I think I'm prepared to make a nomination. We'll put Tuffy Dixon up there.
Is this a railroad?
No, I'm actually going to offer a substitute motion. I got your back, Tuffy. I think probably Skip Overdyer might be the guy that could,
I'll second that.
could be the guy that.
Mayor?
There we go.
All in favor? Yeah.
Yeah,
Ayes
aye.
have it. All opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. I know y'all are looking a lot at the unemployment rates, and we are at a low threshold right now, but what about underemployment? That seems to be sort of a problem that we're facing right now, that we've got a lot of degreed folks that can't find work in their field, so they've, taken lower paying jobs just to try to make ends meet. How are y'all addressing that, or are you at this point?
It's a great point, and certainly in a community, I've worked in a couple of other coastal communities where that was also a challenge. Obviously, when you have a coastal economy, you have a lot of service industry, which we greatly appreciate. You also have a lot of people who are willing to locate in a beautiful area and take a lower wage than what their credentials might otherwise qualify them for. So underemployment is a common challenge in a beautiful community like ours that people want to live in. I'll tell you that is part of the story. When we talk about, we often have companies say, well, gosh, at 2, 3%, even 4% unemployment, where are my people going to come from if I locate in your area, if I expand an operation in your area? And we talk about the fact that we do have a significant number of underemployed. We all know them. We all have friends who fit that bill. And I can tell you that right now we are looking at putting forward a proposal for grant funding to Triumph Gulf Coast in a regional way, because obviously this challenge is not specific to Okaloosa County or to Destin. It is a Northwest Florida challenge. So as a component of that study, certainly digging into that underemployment and getting a true sense of what that percentage is and what pay scale folks would be willing to change jobs for. That's one of the questions, having been involved in some studies in the past, that's one of the questions that type of survey will ask. That will be information that will help us go considerably deeper than we can right now when we answer the question about the workforce and where it will come from.
Great. Thank you as always for coming.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thanks so much. All right, and the next segment, we're going to have do public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings. Ray, do you have any blue cards? No blue cards. Seeing that there's no blue cards, is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up to the podium and share your kind comments or your grief or any concerns that you may have? This is your big chance. Yes, sir. We always look forward to hearing from this gentleman. Just state your name and where you live.
It's on. My name's Alan French, 50 Lands End Drive. I actually represent, you have no idea what I'm going to talk about, I know, but actually representing trees on the coast. And we've been working really hard for 2 years to come up with a plan for Airport Road, and I understand that that's going to be presented tonight. And I want to thank y'all in advance for agreeing that this is a great plan. I hope you do. But anyway, we are so excited to donate trees to the city, and we hope that this plan everybody likes. Native trees, live oaks. Airport Road in 25 years will be spectacular. But we're not doing it for ourselves right now. We're doing it for our kids and grandkids. So anyway, that's all I have to say about the trees, and hope that y'all agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Hi, Patty Brown, 86 Shira Street, Destin, Florida. The reason I'm up here is because I was a member of the short-term rental task force, and I worked really, really hard on that committee. I didn't miss a single meeting. I think we came up with a lot of great ideas, but the presentation to the council is a night that I cannot be here. And so I'm requesting, I sent you all an email, and I'm requesting that you change it to the first week of June so that I can attend. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well then, we'll move on to the city's manager report. Take it away.
Yes, sir. The first item we have is regarding the Airport Road landscaping. Staff worked with the landscape designer and Mr. Alan French and his group, and also Mr. Ron Sandsted and the Main Street Alliance folks. And I would like to ask Mr. David Campbell to give a brief explanation of what you have before you tonight.
During our meeting with Mr. Sandsted, Mr. French, our landscape architect, Brad Davis, and Mr. Schmidt, we wanted to make sure that that we understood that there was a group that was willing to fund this project. And we certainly wanted to make sure that we put the trees in that council had expressed interest in, as well as Mr. French and Mr. Sandsted. And what we have are landscaping in the islands on Airport Road with either small live oaks or large live oaks. And the reason behind that, the medians that are wide enough to be able to plant some of the larger oaks in, as you see here, we have 3 in this one. This is close to the fire department. The reason is a 6-inch oak has an 80-inch root ball. And we wanted to make sure that we certainly had enough space to plant, not necessarily an 8-inch live oak, but maybe a 6 or a 4. 80-inch root ball is quite substantial. So what we see here are going to be 4 to 6-inch live oaks in the wider medians. And in the narrower medians, we're going to plant 3 smaller oaks in a cluster. And what our landscape architect has seen over the years is that the larger live oaks tend to surface their roots sooner. The smaller live oaks, when they mature, the roots are deeper and they won't affect the infrastructure. So we made the decision on the narrower portions of the medians to put the smaller oaks. And you'll also notice that this green area on most of the medians is a flat curb. That has a different requirement as far as our clear zone is concerned. And none of the medians out there that have a flat curb have adequate clear zone to plant a tree. So in order to get trees planted in those areas, we would actually have to build curb and gutter to meet the Green Book standards for safety in the clear zone. So everywhere that we do have curb and gutter along Airport Road, we have planted either a cluster of smaller sand live oaks, or in the wider areas we planted the larger live oaks, or we show planting the larger live oaks. And here, for instance, this shows medians with our drainage. We can't plant trees in those medians because it would damage the drainage facilities. Also, under each live oak, there are African iris. And the reason for that is the Bermuda sod that's out there doesn't do well in the shade. So this is planning for the future. So we'll have plant material underneath those oak trees. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you. I have a question. So when I'm looking at this, the curve where we have the most accidents, for lack of a better word, is that going to be the shorter plants? It looks like it's saying that it's purely irises around that curve. Is that correct? Or is that not?
Let me get to the curve here.
I'm just wondering what the logic is. Do we put big trees there as an additional fence separator sort of thing, or do we put smaller? I don't know. I'm just curious what.
Heading towards City Hall from Main Street, this is the beginning of the curve. And this shows the smaller live oaks in that median. And the rest of the median has the drainage pipe in it as well as the flat curb. If we go around the curve, you can see we have drainage in that median and it's flat curb, so there's really no trees that we can plant in there.
Next slide, at least on ours, it looks like it says 120 African iris. So
That's correct.
that'll be beautiful. I'm really excited about this. Thank you for working together with Trees on the Coast and staff.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same thing about any trees on that curve. We might do a gravel runoff for runaway trucks, maybe, might be more appropriate.
Like they do in the mountains.
But bushes and grass would probably be the safest thing on that corner. I notice you do have on the west end of that corner 3 trees.
That's correct.
Yeah, that you may want to rethink that. Of course, they don't ever hit right there. They always hit the airport, right?
They do. They seem to hit and roll into the fence or go directly into the fence there. And just for your information, the DOT has funded safety improvements on that curve.
Mr. Morgan.
Do we have a project cost for this yet?
That's a good question. I don't have that. That figure was, maybe Mr. French has that figure.
We talked about it, and Brad Davis made a quick phone call.
Because, I mean, essentially, we have the cost of the trees themselves. That's easy to come up with.
That's correct.
But the installation, do we have any work on that yet?
We don't. Obviously, the smaller trees we can install ourselves.
Sure.
And the city is going to participate by doing the maintenance of traffic. When we plant those trees, we're going to have to block the inside lanes, which will turn
And
airport
the
into...
city's going to help with that.
That's right.
So basically, the contractor that we would find to plant the trees, purchase the trees, whatever, they would work with the city on a timeline,
That's correct.
based on the plans you presented us.
That's right.
Mr. French, tree cost.
Well, there was, and I'm out of my head,
Sure.
6 weeks ago, it seemed like we were, I think David said that whoever was donating the trees would also pay for the irrigation, or attaching the bubblers to there's existing irrigation in the medians, correct?
That's correct.
So the bubblers wouldn't be that big of a issue.
There was something about the zones that were complicated, and making sure the zones, I don't know if that was going to add to the cost?
It's not going to add much to the cost.
Okay.
We have to analyze the zones to make sure when we add the bubblers that the rest of the system is going to
Okay.
operate properly.
But the irrigation concerns are definitely doable.
Doable.
Yeah, irrigation is definitely doable, because we
Right.
wouldn't do it without irrigation available. And
'Cause-
as far as tree cost, you know, if you use a contractor
Sure.
for a 1.5-inch caliper live oak, it's double the cost
Of
of
course, and buying it directly.
having
from-
a planting day or a project where we do it ourselves.
Sure.
But I'm not sure if city's going to let us do a tree planting party on the median of Airport Road.
No. Sure, okay. Yeah, because the sooner that we can get itemized project costs for the tree cost, irrigation, installation, the sooner we can gather money to get the job done.
Great. Okay, we'll work on, unless the city wants to do it. Y'all don't have anything else to do, do you?
No, we don't. We'll work with the landscape architect.
I can talk with Brad and we can get a quote. If you want me to, take a
that'll be
load
great.
off of you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, keep me in the loop.
I will definitely.
The sooner we get it, the sooner we can get busy fundraising.
Well,
so.
one of the issues, if you don't see the trees go in right away, we're getting near summer, and the extension service is saying that it might not be a great time to plant with the heat coming up.
Sure.
So it may be a fall project, just
They're
to
probably
give the
right.
trees a better chance.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon?
I was going to ask about the irrigation, Chatham.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Next item up will be,
Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
yes, you may.
Since you had brought this, or I think it was you or someone had brought it up about they're actually planning, FDOT is planning to do some improvements there to increase safety.
Yes.
Did I hear correctly that one of those improvements is some sort of corrugated or treated road surface that is anti-slip?
That's correct.
Okay, that's terrific.
It'll be a
I'm glad to
friction
hear that.
course on that curve.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next on our list is the item 4B, Gulf Power negotiations update. Do you want to start it, or are we going to have city manager give her portion of it? Go ahead, Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. So last meeting, the council authorized me to be the lead negotiator on the Gulf Power franchise extension. The franchise agreement, and we met with Gulf Power last Thursday. It was a good meeting. We got a lot of the easier items sorted out. We got rid of some of the other things that had some of the other terms and items that had just been sort of left over from previous negotiations. We put some of that stuff to bed. I believe we've narrowed most of the issues down to basically only discussing the undergrounding of portions of the town. And that's going to require some more negotiations. And rather than have to exercise our purchase option to preserve it before the extension expires, I believe that the city and Gulf Power have negotiated an extension that we can all find agreeable, so that we can all walk hand in hand and hopefully bring this into a smooth landing in the next several months. So other than that, I don't have any specifics unless you want to ask me something in particular, but you have the meeting minutes before you. It properly reflects most of the, just about all the discussion that was laid out. Other than that, I think it's in the city's best interest to extend the agreement with Gulf Power to give us the opportunity that we can further negotiate the undergrounding of portions of the city.
Real quick, I guess you're hopping into the next item on the agenda. I'll go and kind of cover that. Earlier today, Steve Griffin, the attorney for Gulf Power, contacted me and had indicated that they were amenable, because y'all discussing these minutes here at the meeting, potentially doing an extension, and he contacted me first thing in the morning, and we kind of went back and forth with the proposed agreement, and I sent the agreement to the council, I think around about 10:30 today, and there's only been a couple changes to that, and they were all really just cosmetic. The first change, we removed the word duly from the last whereas clause on page 2. So it just says the company shall execute, and then we remove the word and from that same paragraph 2 at the end. And this is what happens when you get multiple attorneys kind of fighting over, bickering over wording. But then in section 6 on page 3, the attorney for Gulf Power found a typo, and we, at one point in time where it should have said the city, it said the company. And so we fixed those typos, and I actually do have a clean version that the mayor could execute tonight. And I do believe also we had discussed that Steve Griffin, their attorney, said Gulf Power would be willing to have a representative come up here and confirm that we did go ahead and agree to something today. And if you don't mind, if Bernard or Wendell, one of you could come up and just kind of put that on the record.
Bernard Johnson with Gulf Power, and yes, we do concur.
Thanks, Bernard.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, those few changes are the only difference between the version that I sent to y'all earlier. They were cosmetic, and I didn't have time. I made the changes right before I left to come here earlier, and so I do have a clean version Mayor Jarvis could execute tonight. And I would recommend moving forward with it ASAP to give them time to reply and vote to extend it through their process.
I will make that motion if it's an appropriate time to do so.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so you can do that.
Second. All right, well, so I guess that's what you wanted to say, Ms. Ramswell? I had you on the list here. All right, so we have a motion to the second agreement to extend franchise term, and we have a second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion?
On the minutes, the extension would be to September 21st of 2018, and the current deadline is May 19th. That's when it'll expire. This will extend it till then.
Anyone else wish to say anything? City Manager, do you have anything to add?
No, sir, just that it was a good negotiation session, and my hat's off to Councilmember Destin. He did an excellent job representing the city.
Yeah, I attended that as well, and even though there's some work needs to be done, is in why we need this extension, I want to thank the people representing Gulf Power and Councilmember Destin of just coming in with trying to come up with some ideas and plans that's going to work for both parties. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. The vote is unanimous. So moved. Thank you, Mr. Warren and Doug, for training me up. I'm a slow learner. We had some problems with the buttons last week, just for your information if you didn't attend. I thought it was a failure of the technology, but unfortunately it wasn't. All right, and I guess I'll take this back to the city manager. Do you have some announcements?
Yes, sir, I do. So the first announcement I have is our Earth Day cleanup, which is scheduled for Saturday, April 21st. We are partnering again with the Choctawhatchee Bay Alliance. This event is going to be at Joe's Bayou Recreation Area on Saturday, April 21st from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're inviting the public and we're encouraging everyone to participate. Parking is available across the street from Joe's Bayou at the Maddie Kelly Nature Walk. Volunteers will be picking up trash along the water's edge in the water, in the park, and along the shoreline and roadway at the Maddie Kelly Park Nature Walk Pier and Joe's Bayou Boat Launch. All the cleanup materials, gloves, bags, record sheets, etc. will be provided. Please feel free to bring out your kayak or your paddleboard. I'll be out there with my kayak so that we can go ahead and get rid of all the trash that's in the water around Joe's Bayou. Be prepared to get wet, so dress accordingly, and we will be providing free T-shirts. So again, that's April 21st at 8 a.m. at the Maddie Kelly Park and Nature Walk. Also, just to reiterate what Miss Lisa Firth had said, Friday, April 27th at 10 a.m. is our National Arbor Day celebration to be held at the Destin Elementary School. That's located at 630 Kelly Street. And then the very last item I have is to talk to the council a little bit about the Holiday Isle dredge of the East Pass. It's an emergency dredge, and the county tomorrow morning will be discussing some bids that they had received from 3 different companies that are ready to mobilize on either May 1st, May 28th, or September 1st. The payment for any private company dredging activity would be borne by the Okaloosa County TDD. Because the city holds a state and federal permit to dredge each pass, the previous interlocal agreement format can be used with some tweaking from our city attorney and the county attorney. The Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners will hear this item tomorrow morning at their regularly scheduled meeting. The commission for the county just wants to get a feeling from the council if you would be agreeable to allowing a dredge happening during the 100 days of summer, and that will help them to make their decision as to when to do the dredge and perhaps even which dredging company that they want to go with. So we don't necessarily need a formal vote, but I would like to be able to provide some information to the Board of County Commissioners tomorrow on whether or not the Destin City Council would be agreeable to allowing a dredge happening during the 100 days of summer.
The original project would have probably started in early May anyway, given the pace of the current project out there at Noriega Point. So keep that in mind, that it would have probably impacted the start of the 100 days anyway.
I have a couple of people here who'd like to speak besides myself. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have the opportunity to ride out with the Coast Guard 2 weeks ago with Congressman Gates and County Commissioner Wines and Matt Trammell to look at the pass. And in the channel was 8 feet maximum, and the Coast Guard is seemed to be concerned about that as well. And they didn't have a problem with, as we discussed this, doing it the 100 days of summer or getting it done as quick as possible. And that would put it in the 100 days of summer. And they didn't have a problem with it, like to see it get done. It seemed like the county wanted to get it done. I know there was some talk from Congressman that was trying to get some funds from the Corps. I haven't heard anything back on that, or if they're going to get some emergency funding from them. But either way, I think everybody on board was wanting to get it done as soon as possible. I just want to relay that to the rest of the council, what we discussed on that day. Thank you.
Mr. Marler.
Therese, do they have a date? You said the first part of May, and then 28th of May, and then it's September. Is there like if it's the first part of May, how long will it take?
Yes, sir, and this goes along with which company that the county awards a bid to. We have Gator Dredging can mobilize by May 1st with a 75-day construction. Mike Hooks LLC can mobilize by September 1st with a 36-day construction, and Cavachi can mobilize by May 28th with a 60-day construction.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
All right, I spoke in length on this issue, being a charter boat operator, former president of the Charter Boat Association. We received the county received a letter from the Holiday Isle Association. They're a coalition of homeowners and condo owners. They're really nervous with the amount of erosion that we've had this spring and what took place last year. If you'll notice on those 2 May dates, that one will take 75 days, the other will take 60. And the September date is only 36 days. And the difference is the equipment of these companies. And I talked with Captain Wines, and even though the September 1st starting date is probably the least desirable with the Holiday Isle property folks because, you know, they're worried about the storms. To get the most bang for the buck, a better job of actually dredging that pass, less weather days because the company that can come in September, there'll be no lay days. So the other two companies don't have as big of barges. So every time it gets above 3 foot, they're going to be piled back up inside and we'll be paying for it. Or the TDC will be paying for it. So the compromise there, and this is what the commission, I think, they felt better about, even though it would be a delay, that the September 1st thing would probably be the most beneficial. Not only do they have the better equipment, we get a better dredge job, they could move all the sand required, and most importantly, that they were taking into consideration it would be the most cost effective because it wouldn't cost as much actually to do the project, use the TDC money, but more importantly, we're not footing the bill if we get crappy weather and they have to pull their equipment back inside. So I told Kelly that I would recommend to you all that the company that could be there by September 1st, they have a bigger dredge, it's an offshore dredge, that would probably be the preferred one. Now, I'll leave that all up to you. And the last thing is, having that company in there would be not during the 100 days of summer and all the traffic issues that we have in and out of the harbor and up and down the pass. So that's just something to take into consideration. The Holiday Isle folks said that they would prefer to have it done sooner, but they understood also that you know, the county needs to try to make the best decision. Either way, they'll get their sand. It's just, it's kind of a difficult decision, but I'm leaning towards the September 1st. I just know the weather that we get in June and July, especially last June and July was some of the wettest, gnarliest weather we've had in a long time in the summer. We usually kind of figure June and July are really nice, calm days. Well, that didn't happen last year. And so the thought of paying all those lay days and that kind of stuff, I think the September 1st is the safe bet, and we still accomplish the overall goal of getting those folks some sand and getting the dredge passed all the way out past the bar.
Would you like that memorialized in a motion so you can take that to the county?
Certainly, if the council is agreeable.
I'll make the motion for the third option, which was the one September option.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
And we have a second. Ms. Ramswell, you're first at the plate.
Thanks. I have a question, and it's directed towards you because I know your experience on charter boats, but obviously we have others up here that are familiar with it as well. So happy for anyone to chime in. So I know the traffic in and out of the pass is obviously a consideration. Which is the lesser of two evils, so to speak? The boat traffic numbers or the fact that it's so narrow and shallow right now? Does that make sense? Like, which is the better thing to think about? Like, does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that's a really, really good question because that's something we'll have to, the shallowness in rough weather is we're going to have to deal with that if we don't do the dredging. That's what I said. This is really kind of a difficult situation. If you do it from the practical aspect of it, it's the 100 days of summer are over. We're going to get more bang for our buck. The county will have a better, they'll be able to get more done more economically than that would be the preference. You start looking at safety concerns and the shallowness of the thing, that's another thing that we all need to take into account. So that makes your question, a really good question. I have a few more people that want to weigh in. Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you go out the pass every day, pretty much, and I'm gonna have to lean on what you just said. And the fact is that if you have to utilize the pass every day to go and make your living, and you think that you can make it until September, I would say that we'd wait till September. I mean, that's I don't think you would do anything that would be anyway questioning whether or not you could get in and out a pass. But I know we never know about these things, but I would say we would.
Yeah, it's just from my experience, every time that we try to go with less equipment or less money, they almost get the pass dredge, and then we don't get the last 20 feet. And you know, our fleet needs that pass to be dredged. But I think what's real important to us is that we get it done right. Because they're not going to come back next year. This is always a once every 4-year type of thing. So my personal feelings is there may be days we all are tied to the dock because it is shallow and it is rough. But in the long run for our fleet and access to the Gulf of Mexico and the private boat anglers, I think long term, if we're spending this money to address not only the pass needs, but the needs of the people on Holiday Isle, then we probably ought to get the best equipment we can get to do the job in the best manner possible. Mr. Morgan.
Mayor, you pretty much answered my questions, and I will defer to you on this. I will say the pass does seem dangerously shallow, and like you said, there may be some days where people will have to stay at the docks. And my concern is, and you know this way better than I do, but you have a charter boat operator that's got to make his money in this short time frame, and they have to make a decision, kind of like the snapper derbies back in the day. So if you and Kelly Wines think September is the best bet, I'll certainly defer to y'all. But I am concerned with the safety of the pass right now. I've seen it a few times, and it is gnarly. So.
Well, Mr. Braden went out there with Kelly. Of course, I go across it all the time. So right now, you don't go through the channel. You either go 150 yards west of the green can or 150 yards east of the red can, because that's where Mother Nature has still left us with 7.5 feet of water. In between, it's below 6 feet, so it's pretty gnarly. Mr. Overdeer.
Well, I talked to Commissioner Wines as well, and he agrees with you that it's going to be tough to do if we wait until September. But he said he talked to everybody at the fishing fleet, more folks like you, and they all said they could survive. And I would think that the folks on Holiday Isle would really rather have that done in September rather than blowing sand up on that beach while all the tourists are there. So I mean, it just seems to me like if Kelly and you folks can wait, then it's just safer, probably better for us to do it in September.
Mr. Marler?
I agree, I think, on September, and it's not, I know the charter fleet and all our local boating people will take all the precautions they can. My concern and why I prefer to wait till September is more or less you have the tourist industry out there who rent a pontoon boat, jet ski, or whatever, and they're not going to follow the rules or watch what's going on when the dredging pipes are out there, and next thing you know, we're going to have a serious accident that way. I saw several times while the current company's out there doing some dredging where we had some near incidents, and that was mostly our people trying to avoid the tourists that were trying to get out there who were trying to avoid the dredge because they didn't know what to do. So I think, you know, if the charter fleet feels that they can hang in there, then I agree. That's why I seconded it.
And my last comment is geared towards the property owners on Holiday Isle. I know they're really worried about, they're running out of beach to set up their chairs and stuff like that, but I think this long term, they'll get a better job of beach renourishment with a better company. And like I said, if there's any further storm action that make it more critical, then I guess we can always look for another source of dredging in the July-August period. But I think this is going to be the way to go, and I would recommend if we could just get the city manager to put together a letter. I don't think we need, well, I guess we do need to take a vote on this. So we have a motion to recommend to the Okaloosa County Commissioners that they pick the company that can be there September 1st and do it, and we have a second to that. So now we'll just go ahead and take a vote unless there's any further discussion. Seeing none. Ayes have it, it's unanimous.
Mayor, I'll be attending the Board of County Commissioner meeting tomorrow morning, so I'll be able to relay to them the vote that the council took this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, first reading of ordinances not requiring public hearings. There are none tonight. Good, because we took up a lot of time on that last one. All right, public hearings. Let's see, we have a first reading of ordinance 1801, no? Yes, first reading of ordinance 1801-CN, abandonment of the northerly 1/10 of an acre segment of Calhoun Avenue right-of-way.
Ordinance number 18-01-CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for abandonment of the northerly .10 acre segment of Calhoun Avenue right-of-way, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. And this is a quasi-judicial hearing. I believe Mr. McGill is here with his two clients, and so evidence will be presented, so we need to swear in all the witnesses. So is it Mr. Schutz and Mr. Gwynn, are both y'all going to be testifying? Are y'all going to be testifying tonight? Could y'all stand real quick? Could you stand, Ms. Bryla, could you stand too? Or are you testifying for the city? Or, oh, David, all right, David. Could you all raise your right hands? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. I guess, do y'all waive reading of the application too? Do you waive reading of the application? Okay. And I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Kopp.
The city would like to question Mr. David Campbell with regard to the vacate. Could you give us the information in the staff report and the background?
Sure. This was brought before the LPA last month, and the LPA vote was 4-2 in order or to recommend vacation. According to the LDC Article 8, Section 8.01, subsection D, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the City Council is required to make a specific list of findings in order to approve a vacation request. And they are as follows. The requested vacation is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff reviewed it. This is staff's review is the transportation element provides the framework for achieving the optimum cost-effective transportation system to balance the needs of the City of Destin, residents, workers, tourists, and through traffic. This vacation will create a consistent optimum right-of-way width where Beach Drive and Calhoun Avenue merge. Number 2, the right-of-way does not provide the sole access to any property. Remaining access shall not be by easement. Staff determined the proposed vacation will not affect access to any property. No easement is required for ingress and egress. Number 3, the vacation would not jeopardize the current or future location of any utility. All of the utility agencies have submitted clearance letters identifying no significant impact as a result of this vacation. Number 4, the proposed vacation is not detrimental to the public interest. Staff found a non-uniform right-of-way was created with the merger of two plats. The proposed vacation will clear up the non-uniformity and will not be detrimental to the public interest. With that, yes, I'd like to this is the vicinity of the project, or excuse me, of the proposed vacation. Generally, it's the location where Beach Drive and Calhoun Avenue converge near Joe's Bayou. This is Peacock Point replat back in early 2000s. You can see this triangular piece here that was formed by the merger of two plats, the Calhoun subdivision in 1953 and Kelly's addition in 1954. A close-up of this area here of the Calhoun subdivision shows you that the little triangular piece that was part of that plat. That yellow line represents the the east boundary of Calhoun subdivision and the west boundary of Kelly's addition. This is a survey of the area in the yellow. And this is what it appears on an aerial. And with that, I have no further comment.
And the city also wants to enter the staff report and exhibits A, B, and C into the record.
And I, as part of the application process, I also had to review the title work, and it checked out. And in fact, there was a survey that no one could read from the 1920s, and actually a clean copy was found at the Manilo Picture Studio, and they actually have a cleaner copy in the clerk of court. And this thing is about 100 years old at least, so there's no one that's going to be claiming any title interest out there. So the title checks out. And is that it, Kim? Okay, Mr. McGill, you want to put your...
Mr. Mayor, I'm here representing the applicant, and in the interest of brevity and in my best impersonation of Gloria Fraser in those stupid ERA commercials, what he said and what he said. We agree with the staff report, and we think that unless y'all have some specific questions for me or for Mr. Wynn or Mr. Schultz, we absolutely agree with everything the staff has said. I think that it meets all the requirements of 8.01 D2 of your land development code. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Braden?
Well, I got a question for you. On, I don't know if you have it over there, but on what we have, it shows parcel B is actually closer to the water. What is parcel B? Is that a...
Parcel B is owned by the applicant. It is, and that actually, that picture that you just had up there kind of shows that better. You go down, what Mr. Campbell was saying is that the east line of Calhoun Second Edition goes straight up along that line, and when the two plats were merged, Mr. Braden, that triangle was created. That was part of the Calhoun Second Edition plat and dedication. The other parcel was never part of the plat, and if you can go to the next slide, I think you'll be able to see, or maybe it's the next one, where you can see the actual survey there, and you can see that the other part, if you extended the north line of Kelly's addition, it came across and created the south line of parcel A. You actually have to turn around and look at that sideways, I guess, but it created that parcel A. So parcel B was never part of any right-of-way dedication. It was privately owned by the Davises, I think, or whoever prior to the Davises, and then the Peacock Point developer, and now Mr. Schultz's company, Southern Park.
So that parcel B is actually part of that Pelican Point?
No, it is not part of the plat, but it is owned by the applicant, Southern Park. But it was never part of the dedicated right-of-way in Kelly's addition, or was it part of the dedicated right-of-way in the original Calhoun plat of 1953? So I think Mr. Campbell kind of put it well. When the two plats merged, this triangular part was part of a dedicated right-of-way. It was just never, you know, it's just kind of one of those odd things, and came up with an irregular shaped piece of property that, frankly, the public or the city have used for 53 or since 1953 or 1954.
And it's the parcel A. It looks like it's locked from any type of water.
It is.
At all. Now this parcel B, could be, say, backfilled and a home put there?
I don't think there is enough land to do that. I mean, you can ask the applicant some of those specific questions. Anything that they would do with the property, they'd have to go through a development or get a permit, but I do not think that is part of the plan and can't be built on.
What would be the reason that they would want this parcel A?
You can ask Mr. Schultz or Mr. Gwynn, I mean, but they basically can fence it off and make it. Mr. Schultz owns lot 6 right above it. Mr. Quinn, you want to come up, or both of you? Mr. Schultz?
Schultz, just respond to that, but he...
Brad Schutz, 135 Calhoun Avenue. Mr. Braden, it's my understanding there's two legal descriptions, and one of them actually goes out in, covers span of about 50 by 80 in the water. It's, but it's Bay Estates, which is the zoning over there, so the lot's not big enough to do anything with anyway. Currently, we have a park over there for our employees to go use, a pontoon boat, dock. Did not even know this thing existed until we had it sold to another party, and they came to the city, and then we found out that this easement was there from 1953.
I got you. Because I've been told, you really can't trust what the grapevine's got in it, but that this needed this piece for a driveway or something to go to a house, or and also heard that there was, wanted it for the park, or for a park or whatever. Because I don't know if this. I'm looking at the Google Earth thing, and there is one dock here with a fence or something.
And we pulled permits for the fence and the dock.
Right. Is that where the pontoon boat is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were us or the city was not aware there was still an easement there.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that it'd be right there in the, right in the middle of something. So I was just curious. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Overdeer?
Yeah, my only question would be, I understand it sounds like the city is for it, and it sounds like obviously you're for it, and 4 of the 2 members of the LPA are for it. What were the other 2? Why would they not be for it?
The only comment that I heard at the LPA meeting was from one gentleman from Holiday Isle, and he did not want to start giving up city-owned property. But we have been paying taxes on that property since 2012, and the previous owner was paying taxes on it since '04. Okay. So it's not.
And I'd like to just fill in with that. It's actually a dedication, and it's held in trust for the public, so long as there is a legitimate public use for it. And you can see just what Mr. Braden was saying. It's just odd how they came together. So and the dedication was for streets. So there is, and frankly, the city hadn't used it since 1953. So that kind of the proof's in the pudding that there really is no legitimate public use for that as a street or as a right-of-way.
Okay, good.
Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. McGill, you might be able to answer this. Or Brad. We're not affecting the sidewalk at all.
That is correct. You can actually see on this, correctly up, right side up there, that's where the sidewalk is, where he's now putting the cursor.
Okay.
So yes, the sidewalk is not affected at all.
And Mr. Campbell, you're of that opinion from reviewing these?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Dixon, last time you can talk about this.
Yeah, this is an area that's basically, if you put it in a square, 20 by 20. I know it's a location that's near the water, but truly it's got no water access.
That's correct.
So I'll be glad to make the recommended motion if I can find it here.
Before you, you're not making the motion yet, though, right, Mr. Dixon?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Do what you got to do.
Are you done, Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Okay. Does staff have any questions?
Jeff, I have, Ms. Ramsdell, do you still want to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a few questions, and I went out and was looking at the property, and I know it's fenced off, and there's a sign on it that's the obvious notice of what's going on. Is that the actual property behind that fence?
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Who put the fence up?
We did.
Y'all did?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the property directly to the left, if you're on the sidewalk, who owns that? Is that your property?
Inside the gate?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. I own lot 6 of Peacock Point.
So is that a goal, is to maybe merge the 2 lots and have one giant lot?
Possibly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We again, I'll tell Mr. Braden, we went to the city,
Mhm.
got a permit for the fence, got a permit for the dock, and it never even came up that there was still an easement down there until we were going to sell the small site separately, And the young lady who was going to buy it came down to see if she could actually put a structure on it. And I think it was somebody in the planning department started looking, and that's when this easement question came up.
So I guess my question is, if you can't build anything on it, obviously it would increase your property value if you were to merge the two, but if you can't build anything and it would be open, pretty landscaping such as what's there, I don't know who did it.
We did.
You did that too. So, I mean, other than the increase in value, I guess my concern is this, and this is actually now I'm going to switch and direct it to city staff. Our property that we've purchased from the concrete plant that's adjacent to our park and all of that, how far does it go? Does it actually go into that along the shore, or do we break off further down?
I'll pull this aerial up and I'll describe it to you. Here's the first slide. The Cemex, this is the cursor. See the cursor? That's the Cemex plant. And this is the Mattie Kelly Park. And there's, along the shoreline here, was property that was dedicated to the city by, I'm going to go to the next slide. This property was dedicated to the city by J. Odom. And then this clump of trees here is parcel B that was in the map that, let me go one more slide.
And parcel B is the one you already own, correct, Brian?
Yes.
And this is parcel B, where that clump of trees was. So this is not connected to anything the city, any property the city owns. This is merely the Calhoun Avenue right-of-way.
The piece that then is south of parcel B, but east of the yellow triangle.
This?
Yeah, who owns that?
That
is city.
That's city.
That's city, okay.
That's correct.
Parcel B is owned by someone.
Yep, they don't.
Right, but where those little trees are below.
The yellow is what you're asking.
I'm forward thinking, and obviously your point is well taken about the city hasn't used it for public use or a road or right-of-way to this point. I'm just wondering, with the plans and the discussions that we've had with the concrete plant and any ideas we've had, is this something that we might be able to utilize when we do that as some part of the feature
That was one of the first things that came to mind when this was brought to my attention. But there's no connectivity. This is merely a small piece disconnected from the larger park area.
I'm so hesitant only because I am sort of that mindset of I hate the thought of we're giving away city property to someone and then they're going to be able to benefit because it increases their value. But I'm leaning more in your favor right now because if it's not connected and it's not something we could utilize, then, and you're already there with I'm kind of torn at this point. So, just to be frank.
Help you over the hump here a little bit too is, you know, they pay property taxes on it, and if fee simple goes to the adjoining property owner, they will continue to pay property taxes on it, so it will help the tax rolls for the city of Destin.
So you're currently then paying taxes on this piece that's not even your property?
Mr. Rem, there's two tax ID numbers. I'm paying taxes on both sites, A and B. The B is out in the water. I've been paying taxes since 2013 when we bought it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Marlar.
I was just going to make a comment because I'm pretty sure that's about the general location that used to have a fish house on it back when I was a child, back when Mr. Dixon and I were children. I believe, and I think that was part of parcel B that's no longer there, is what I believe. That was my only comment.
Mr. Destin?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't have any trouble supporting Mr. Schutz or Mr. Gwynn in this. It's apparent we're never going to be able to use this this triangle. It was a strange legal leftover of merging two plats. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and make the recommend. Actually, Tuffy, you wanted to do the recommended motion, so I'm going to give you that. I'll second it. You got it pulled up in front of you, so I'm going to, yeah, go for it.
I move that the city council approve ordinance 18-01-CN on first reading and schedule it for a second reading.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, and discussion, which we've already had pretty much, but I do want to make one comment.
Mayor, we still have to finish it's a public hearing, actually, so we have to finish that aspect of it. But in a minute, y'all can vote and discuss.
Right. Well, good, then I'll be the first person to talk in the public hearing.
Any more evidence, Mr. McGill? Staff, anything else?
Yeah, my only comment to it is, in that vein of giving up city property, well, folks have been paying taxes on this unusable piece of property already for a number of years, and they're going to continue to pay property taxes on this piece of property. If we don't abandon the property, no one's going to pay taxes now that the cat's out of the bag and they know they're not responsible for property taxes on a piece of property they don't really own. So I think it's a win-win for both parties in this particular case as far as effect on our community. That's what the staff report indicated. That's what the LPA came up with that decision, and Mr. Burns' review of the titles.
That's correct. And does anyone from the public want to testify under oath? All right, we'll close the public hearing portion and turn it over to council for deliberation.
I think we're done. We already deliberated. Is the council, can I entertain a vote here? You guys good with that? Okay, let's go ahead. We'll call this question. All right, go ahead and lock in your votes. It's unanimous. Ayes have it. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Press. Okay, we're good to go. Well, should we take a break? We're awful close. Keep on? I have confirmation and permission from Mr. Dixon to press on. All right, so item number 7 on the agenda, consent agenda, no public comments.
We actually, the Chamber of Commerce item just needs to be pulled because y'all need to make a motion contingent on them providing the insurance. They have not provided proof of insurance yet. And so pull that item and then vote on the rest. So.
I move to approve the consent agenda, and I move to temporarily...
Move to approve of the application for the Chamber of Commerce run, subject to them providing insurance prior to the date of the run.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, Mr. Morgan, and a second from Mr. Destin. Discussion. No discussion. I'm pushing the button, everybody. Ayes have it, unanimous. So moved. Item number 8. Mr. Braden, you're first up on the list.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 1 was my nomination for Mr. Tadlock, but prior to the meeting started, he wanted to remain on the board, the Harbor Board, Advisory Board, so I will not be making that nomination tonight. The second item I got is a Crab Island discussion. I've had several people calling again and emailing about the commercial activity going on Crab Island again. They were kind of surprised it wasn't during spring break, but it's all back now. And I was kind of asked to ramrod that whole project again to see if we couldn't come up with a way to eventually get all the commercial activity off of Crab Island. The major complaints are it's not family friendly anymore. So I wanted to see if we couldn't direct the land use attorney to come up with a resolution that we could present to the county, because they're the ones that has the jurisdiction over that. That would possibly give them 3 to 5 years to remove all that activity for good. Maybe a 1 year of after 1 year no mooring overnight in that area. But basically, kind of get the rest of the council's feelings on it, and see if we couldn't get a resolution started on that. That's something maybe we could present back to the county commissioners by next meeting.
And we had a workshop on this prior to myself and Mr. Overdeer coming on the council, correct?
Yes, sir. It was back during the winter months. The city hosted a workshop, and all of the local agencies were in attendance, along with some citizens and most of the Crab Island vendors.
Well, I spoke with Commissioner Wines, and he kind of shared with me some of the same things that he did with Councilmember Braden. One of the ideas was put a moratorium on their business licenses that they put out with some type of basically attrition over a time period. Another thought process they were thinking about was possibly requiring them not to be able to anchor up overnight, which in essence would prevent them from being able to operate efficiently. I've actually had a meeting with this group of entrepreneurs trying to give them an idea of the challenges they faced, both optically as people drive over the bridge and from a business standpoint. And they told me they were going to try to form an association and come back with some solutions and present it to us. I think if we go along the lines of what Mr. Braden did by developing an ordinance or a recommendation to the council, that would give them an opportunity publicly to step up to the microphone and defend themselves, or come up with some ideas to maybe improve what appears to be a bad optics, let alone safety concerns that the general public has. So maybe I think I could support that idea, Mr. Braden. I think we need to address it. The county wants us to. I think this would be the way to do it, and still give those people that have been, made the investment and are doing business legally right now, give them an opportunity to either come up with some ideas to satisfy people's angst, or if nothing else, at least to defend themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I know this has been, the sheriff's, it's been on his mind, or his plate as well, and he'd like to see some help with it. Another thing is to keep in mind is these people have started and operating a business in a location there's no rent, of any kind. If they could, the people that were, the carpet could be pulled out from underneath them tomorrow, legally, and that come straight from the congressman's mouth. So to give them possibly 3 years or 5 years, 3 to 5 years, 2 to 4 years, is given a whole lot of leeway, because they could be shut down, and they know that they're operating a business in an area that really don't have permission to be there to start with, and can be shut down at a moment's notice. So if they got 2 years, how could you complain? Even if you got 3 or 4 years. I know they've spent a lot of money with some of that stuff out there. And I agree, and to give them some time to come up with an alternative plan or get their money back out of what they've built, is fine as well. So I just like to see the attorney come back with a resolution that we could vote on next meeting and send that on to the county commissioners. to look at.
And I just want to make sure, we got a couple of people that want to weigh in here. I just want to make sure everyone understands that the city itself has no jurisdiction here. All the county's asking for us is their blessing for their next actions, basically. An ordinance would,
Be a
a resolution, because we can't do an ordinance because we don't have jurisdiction.
Right.
So-
Resolution.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind as this discussion goes. I got everybody here stacked up like Atlanta Airport. So let's get started. Let's try to make this quick. If somebody else covers what you were thinking about saying, punt it. Just say what he said. Up first is Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. The major concerns I have is the ripple effect. I'm not disagreeing that we need to have some sort of regulation for the vendors that are out there in some way, shape, or form. There are three things that people come to Destin for: fishing, beach, and Crab Island. And the reason I say that is I've had the opportunity to go to the United Kingdom on several church missions, and there's two places, believe it or not, that you can point out on the map of Florida in the United States, or they'll still call us the colonies: Disney World and Destin. And believe it or not, one of the questions was, how's Crab Island? Is it still there? And these are from England, the British people, and all walks of life in various other countries besides our own people. The ripple effect that I look at is that the tourist industry here, they'll rent a pontoon boat, a jet ski, or anything for 4 or 5 hours and spend that entire 4 or 5 hours anchored at Crab Island. And that ripple effect is not just the vendors that are out there, but the vendors that are in the harbor trying to make a living too. So as long as we try and do something that is beneficial for everybody, and as the mayor pointed out, if these businesses out there get together as a coalition and work with us instead of against us, there might be a way to make it safe and everything. I once proposed that we just put them all in one row and then chain them up, haul them off every night, and then pull them back like a train. But we'll see what happens. But I can certainly say that there definitely needs to be something done. I know that we're a former mayor of ours and another local gentleman are trying to work on getting sanitary facilities out there. So we'll see what happens. That's all I have right now, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I was sorry I missed the Crab Island workshop. I think some of the vendors out there, and I'm a restaurant guy, I'm heavily regulated by the state, alcohol, food, whatever. And some of the vendors, they'll sell you the Bloody Mary mix, but they give you the vodka. That's just ridiculous. You can't do that. And so that's about, I wish I could do it. I'd save a lot of money on my liquor license. That'd be great. But I can't. So that aside, we spent 6 months up here coming up with an ordinance, and it maybe passed unanimously. Mr. Marler, you may have been the dissenting vote, but prohibiting commercial activity in our city parks. This is a park. It's not in our jurisdiction, but it is, for all intents and purposes, a part of Destin. I view this park no different than every other city park that we prohibited commercial activity in. So in terms of the resolution that will be brought back to us that Mr. Braden's recommending, I would like to see one resolution that prohibits commercial activity, period.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, the people that come here to go to Crab Island can still go to Crab Island. Just means they can't buy a chicken burger at Crab Island, or a beer or a margarita or whatever. Nothing's stopping the people from going to Crab Island. But the fact is this stuff is ending up in our bayous, in our harbor, and what's going to happen is if we don't get a check on it, this stuff is going to take over. You look at the way it started and where it is today. It looks like we took a house and made a condo out of it. And so if we don't get a handle on it, this stuff will take over. And it'd be nice if I could just hook up to a hot dog stand and drag them up on Highway 85 and just park them on Highway 85 and sell hot dogs to the people that are coming by there and sitting in traffic. But I can't legally do that. Well, it's the same thing here. The exact same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Ramswell. Oh, sorry about that. Mr. Oberdehr.
I just asked, at that workshop, did we not have some recommendations or some plan that came out of that workshop that we were going to present to somebody that would take responsibility for it? Because I think at the time, we didn't think that anybody was wanting to take responsibility for it. We certainly didn't know about the county having the authorization to police this. And so, didn't we come out with some kind of written document that...
One of the things that were provided to the county and to the participants was a draft ordinance that was actually written by county staff back in 2014, which created a water entertainment district, and it included Crab Island, and it had regulations that they could put in place to basically regulate the activity the way we regulate activity in the harbor. That was presented to the county as part of the packet for the workshop.
I can kind of build on that. At that workshop, this is probably the best workshop I've ever been to in terms of being informative. Every agency you can imagine was there, and everyone kind of went through what they thought they did out at Crab Island. It was very informative. Some people had concurrent jurisdiction over certain issues, and some that you thought would have had control over certain things didn't. And then one guy kind of sitting in his chair kind of raised his hand finally and said, I run the Gulf Island National Seashore. I have absolute jurisdiction over the entire Crab Island. And he said, I didn't even know this was going on. And there's a whole licensing process. They said that he has to go through it, and he started informing everyone there about exactly what has to happen. And then I think he realized he was creating work for himself, and so he kind of hunkered back down after a while. But he's the answer to everyone's problems. If everyone gets with that guy and creates a task force that maybe like through interlocal agreements, you'll be able to get Crab Island under control within a year or two.
But I thought the whole thing was that the county was actually given by the state authorization to actually run it, not Gulf Shores or Gulf Island National Seashore.
For what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they have the submerged land in Crab Island, but legislation was crafted that gave the county the ability to regulate activities out there.
And he kind of made it clear, ultimately, someone needs to be paying their license fees still to the Gulf Island National Seashore. And he kind of, and I don't know how much that costs, but I think he realized he had other issues on his plate. I think he's the one single guy with one other employee that runs the whole Gulf Island National Seashore between here and Gulf Breeze, which is pretty big. And so I think if anyone hasn't reached out to him, he probably needs some help. But the answer is through that program.
Okay, well, so I guess I'm still not clear though on, are we advocating or are we going to take a vote on whether we want to see this whole enterprise out there at Crab Island sunset within 3 to 5 years, or what are we?
What has been brought forward by Councilmember Braden is a desire to direct the land use attorney to craft a resolution that would speak to that issue, that would come back at the next meeting for council to then review and vote on. And if my understanding is correct, the resolution language would include phasing out all commercial activity over the next 3 to 5 years or 2 to 4 years. And I do believe that Ms. Kopp is ready to craft that resolution to bring back for the next meeting if it is a desire of the council.
Okay, and then at that time, then this group, if they're formed or whoever, could come and speak to us. Okay, all right.
Mayor, may I, one point?
Yes, go ahead, and then we'll let Ms. Ramswell finally get a chance at this.
Skip, that's basically our recommendation, and the county could do whatever they want to. They'll set it at, 1 year, 2 years, 3 or whatever. It's basically our recommendation, what we'd like to see. Thanks.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say a lot of what Mr. Burns had said, because I knew that the Gulf Island National Seashore had been the one that was found as the ultimate jurisdiction or authority holder, so to speak. But my understanding now is that they have stopped issuing permits and they haven't issued any more licenses for people to sell anything. So I don't know if they've done a moratorium, if it's planned, if it wasn't planned, that I'm not sure about. But it, again, as Councilmember Morgan mentioned, it's a park, it's a national park, and we've already banned commercial activities in our parks. So that's something to consider, is building on what Councilman Morgan said and expanding it, which brings me full circle to parks and residential areas, everything along Joe's Bayou, any of our inlets, which we discussed before, how there are some people running these commercial businesses out of their backyard docks. And we talked about it, but I don't know that anything came back to us to make a decision on, or do you recall that and what happened with that? Because that is still a problem.
I'm not sure exactly what the question is. I know that what I can tell you is the council passed an ordinance that disallows the floating structures, commercial floating structures, to be moored in any of those bayous or waterways. We also have had on the books in the code the prohibition of commercial activity in residential neighborhoods except for those specifically listed in the code. We have been investigating complaints. We have one property that is being issued violations and notice of hearings. We're currently investigating a second property, so we are working the process with the tools that we currently have, and the Sheriff's Office has done an excellent job with following up on complaints and keeping the floating structures out of our bayous and waterways.
Good, because I was recently made aware of one that is ongoing, and I just wanted to follow up and make sure, because I couldn't recall, honestly, if we had been able to follow through and actually passed anything that attacked that exact thing. Okay, good. Well, then I can just direct them to you guys. But yeah, I want people to be able to make a living and do it the right way. And if the Gulf Island National Seashore is issuing permits for vendors to do things out there, terrific. There's obviously some people that have fallen along with that and doing the right thing, but what we are seeing is the proliferation of a lot of folks that aren't doing the right thing, and that's what's led to the problems we have.
Maybe we should have took the break. Yeah. All right. While you have the floor, Ms. Ramswell, any further comments tonight? We'll move to Mr. Dixon.
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
personally
it's
and
your
not on
turn.
this
Yeah.
topic?
Any other topics that
Just
you'd like to bring up?
a few quick things.
We need consensus at least to instruct.
Mr. Braden has asked if the council is agreeable to directing the land use attorney to draft that resolution and bring back to the next meeting. I don't need a motion, but if I could have consensus that this is what the council desires, we'll bring that back to the next meeting.
All right. Do we have consensus?
Yes, sir. I see all the head shaking yes.
The bobbleheads have it.
Thank you.
All right.
So I guess the first thing I wanted to address tonight is my appointee to the short-term rental committee spoke earlier and has actually emailed and requested a change of date for that meeting for the short-term rental committee. And I just wanted to see if the council was okay with switching that. If you've talked to your appointees or anyone else, I think that'd be beneficial, because she was one that attended every single meeting and even by conference call if she was unavailable personally. So is council okay with that?
I don't have a problem with that, but what are we going to do when another member says they can't be there? And so, I mean, you know, I don't have a problem with her being there. I'd like for her to be there, but, you know, we're going to change everything because one person can't make it?
It's open for discussion, and I certainly understand that point of view. I know they haven't made a regular schedule of meetings yet, and obviously the ones we had before were on a regular
I don't have a
timeframe,
problem
so-
with doing it and trying to accommodate somebody, but if we did that with everything that we do here, we would be basically never getting meetings done because somebody's always going to be missing. So I don't have a problem with trying to work it out, though.
And just case in point, I'd like to go to them because I've been to a couple of them already, and I could make that first one. I can't make the June 5th one. So, I mean, and before I wasn't mayor, now I am, and this is a really hot button issue, and I'd like to attend the meeting. Through the course of that group, they have had people miss as they were going through recommendations and stuff like that. And you know, I applaud, you know, for her being at all the other ones. But to change the meeting, you know, just because one person can, that's just not operationally the way to go, because we'd have this problem with every single LPA. I mean, it could, you know, just go on down and down the line. And we've already took out some of the low-hanging fruit, and I think if nothing else, she can either attend it via phone, which I think a couple people have done that. One meeting you and I were at, somebody did that. They were on the phone attending the meeting. Or more importantly, they could just send a list of their thoughts and ideas on the specific things that still need to be addressed. And I still think that list is available. The things that we didn't, prior to me being mayor, I think Mr. Destin took out a bunch of the things that you guys took the low-hanging fruit and agreed to those portions of the short-term rental task force recommendations, and you sent this back to have this next meeting to work on some more of the issues. So I think the best thing probably there is to give her an opportunity, give her a list of the discussions, and she can share her thoughts on each one of those line items for when they have that discussion. Somebody can represent her. Maybe we can do a proxy for that matter.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure she'd have no problem sharing her thoughts. She's been very vocal and participated very actively. So, you know, I no problem at all asking, you know, if that's something that is feasible or doable. And, I mean, I'll make a motion. It may not get a second or vote, but why not try, since she was one of those that was definitely there. And, you know, others, who knows. So I'd make a motion to move to change the date of the first meeting to the first week in June.
Do we have to do it on the 5th? Mayor, do you have flexibility to do the 6th or the 7th or the 8th, or any time in June?
Snapper season.
I'll second the motion.
We got a motion, got a second? Anybody, any further discussion?
Well, City Manager, did you have, are these set on specific days, or is there a day that you know of that would be in line with when they would typically have met?
They typically met on Wednesday afternoon.
Those are the only 2 days.
You might be looking at like a Wednesday, June the 6th. Snapper season.
We got a motion, we got a second. Let's go ahead and take this to a vote real quick.
Y'all didn't pick a date, or y'all want to vote to move it first and then pick a date?
Just vote to move it. You guys can figure out a date if it passes. Ayes have it, so moved. Yeah, y'all can figure out a date.
Thank you. I'm sure she appreciates it. Actually, she's out there.
City Manager, do you want to pick out a date and
I
just get
have
back
no
with us?
clue at this time, sir. I'll have to go back and see what other meetings that we have scheduled for June. We were going to try to schedule the strategic planning early June, but we can move that. So I'll have to bring back another set of dates at the next meeting. I wasn't prepared to do that, so
Sorry.
Yeah, and that's the problem of this whole thing, when you do that kind of stuff, is trying to schedule and move things around. I'd highly recommend, in spite of today's vote, that, this don't become a regular practice. It just makes their job, the staff's job, everybody
Of course,
else's
and
job
I don't
too
think
tough.
we've ever asked to do this before, so.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ramswell, you done? Okay, Mr. Dixon.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Overdeer.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Marlar.
Just one quick item. I had talked to our city engineer, Mr. Campbell. I know he's already taken off. And he checked with the, I've had some questions about the Noriega Point stuff, about the height of the sand dune. And I just wanted to put on public record, I've been told that that is where it's going to stay. It's not going to get any lower. It was a little bit lower before, where you could actually see a little bit of the pass and the jetties, but my understanding is that that's pretty much where the height's going to be. So in case somebody asks any of you other council members the same question, because I've been asked a couple of times because I work on the docks, but that's where it's going to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Destin.
Very briefly, I just wanted to let everybody know Founders Day is going to be at the Community Center on May the 5th. I know a bunch of us are going to be there. I think, Kyron, are you planning on attending? All right. Kyron's the MC. Anyways, tell your friends, tell a lot of folks. We're going to have, I think we're going to have a dessert competition. Chef Jim's going to be out there. We're going to have a fish fry and some good camaraderie, and getting to see folks is always a pleasure. We're going to have a lot of folks show up and just come on down.
Hey, we're having it's Cinco de Mayo too, so we get the double pleasure.
Oh yeah, then you can go see Chatham at La Paz after.
There you go.
Mr. Marlar's the DJ on Founders Day.
Well, MC.
Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. In spite of a terrible cobia season, I'd like to congratulate Tuffy on first place overall in the Crab Cruncher. Followed by my boat, which was second place overall. But Mr. Bailey, I'd like you to note in the minutes that my fish was 0.8 pounds larger than Mr. Dixon's.
And your paycheck was like 20.8 pounds heavier, too.
Yeah, but when Mr. Destin used to fish bass, he got a boat.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll try to make this really, really quick. What we're doing, and we're going to get out of here before 8 o'clock tonight, which I think is exceptional. We did have a light.
Maybe.
Oh, darn it. No, that's actually fine. My goal is to keep the meetings inside of 2 hours, and the main reason is so the rest of us citizens of our town can participate in the civic process. If we have short, concise meetings within a reasonable time frame, it allows people to take that time, come up here, participate in the process, share their thoughts, and be involved in city government, educate themselves in the process, and still get home in time to get the kids ready for school or to get ready for their next business day. So what I'm going to do is I would like to ask the city manager to bring back a resolution revising elements of the Destin City Council regular meeting agenda. And it's just to help us be more efficient in how we exercise. Some of that will be as I become a better chair in the process and not getting out in front of myself like I just did. And then also just as we get used to it as a council, I just think it'll be give the public more opportunity to engage in a process, and that's my whole goal in it. So I've got a couple items that I've got that I want to address, and the city manager said she will get this to each one of you tomorrow. The things that I think ought to be changed, or I would like to see to be changed, but at the same time, after you evaluate it, I'd like to ask for the input from every single one of you. If you agree with them, or if you disagree, why, or come up with an alternative thing that, or any ideas that you think that would help facilitate us having a really efficient meeting. And there'll be times where our agendas will be light, which is normal, but there'll be times where, in controversial issues, where there'll be a lot of people that want to speak, and I think the more efficient we are, we'll allow those people more opportunity to share their thoughts with us. So instead of going down these items, I just kind of want to give you all the heads up of what I'm trying to do here, and then allow the city manager to get you these ideas, and then we'll come back with a resolution and kind of reframing our procedures. And it's not just my idea or the staff's idea. I want it to be a group think here, so we can do a better job of getting our meetings. I think the more efficient we are, I think it's what I saw in the Charter Boat Association. We used to have 3-hour meetings, and I promised them we'd only go for an hour and a half, and I stuck to that. And when I started doing that, our participation went from like 12 guys to 25 to 35, and sometimes 40, and it was because they could count on they were going to be here from this time to that time. They were going to come out of it edified. They would have time in advance because it's public notice to gather their thoughts and stay on point. And then it's hard to keep a bunch of fishermen from getting into the weeds. So I think some of the ideas here will help us in that endeavor. So I just want to give you all the heads up, be looking for that, and then hopefully we'll come up with a resolution, and then we can just have open debate when we come to that point. All right, let's see, our land use attorney.
Yes. I want to advise the City Council that I desire advice concerning litigation, and for that reason, I am announcing an executive session to be held on May 7th at 6 p.m. for the following pending litigation. BI Inc., Dewey Destin Harborside LLC plaintiff versus City of Destin, Florida defendant in the Circuit County Court of the First Judicial Circuit in and for Okaloosa County, Florida. It's case number 2016 CA 00367-2F. The subject matter of the meeting will be confined to settlement negotiations or strategy sessions related to the litigation expenditures.
So moved.
Second, if that requires a second, or...
No, just letting you all know.
I have nothing there, so we can turn over to the public.
All right, last item on the agenda then is comments, concerns from the audience / public on any matters considered at this meeting or any matters not on the agenda. Any takers come to the podium?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Two quick things, and I am speaking completely as just a person and a citizen right now. As a human being. Exactly, actually. Two things. Since you just discussed the agenda structure, this is just a personal opinion. I would strongly suggest that you change it such that public comment happens along with the items, because if that is saving you time by making it before and or after all of that, it's only because it discourages public comment, in my opinion. This is my opinion, just a suggestion. I think it makes so much more sense and flows better and leads to a better public discourse if the comments happen along with that specific agenda item. The second thing I wanted to do is say thank you to Councilwoman Ramswell for bringing up Ms. Brown's question, because no matter what the answer is, it is, I've experienced it, and I've seen a whole lot of people experience it, not necessarily at these meetings, but at other local government meetings, not being responded to at all, even if the answer might have been no, is dehumanizing, and it is just good to see that someone was answered when they made a request. And even if the answer had been no way, that's better than just not answering someone. So I wanted to thank Ms. Ramswell, and hopefully you'll always do that when people make a request. Thank you.
Bill McKissick, 151 Calhoun Avenue. To your point about the restrooms at Crab Island,
if we do decide to keep businesses there, because we do have such a volume of people at Crab Island now that we didn't have 10 or 15 years ago, and there's no restrooms there. So if they were granted some license, whatever number we determined, that in that license, that they had to have restrooms in the restaurants or whatever the facilities were, it'd be a way to maybe solve our problem of not having restrooms at Crab Island.
Can I ask you a question? So basically what you're saying is some of the larger barges that they have, that they'd be required to have a marine grade restroom with holding tanks, and they'd have to pump them out at the appropriate pump house station, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it would be, and we wouldn't have to put standalone restrooms out there that look pretty funky.
What about for customer use only?
No, they wouldn't have, they'd have to be
General use of the public?
general use to the public, correct. And everybody would know that there's restrooms there.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And this is directed to the mayor or city manager. Is somebody said that, because from the information I got up here, I didn't hear anybody, because I asked the question direct, that we were going to put restrooms on Crab Island. So I just want to, I don't want people to get that idea, because I know full well that I am not going to be satisfied with that. And so if that starts to happen, all we're doing is creating the environment so this stuff continues to spiral out of control. So restrooms on Crab Island, I hope, is something that we're not considering, or we're not part of considering. So.
No, sir, not at this time. What did come before council was our support for an entity that is putting in for a Triumph Gulf Coast grant that utilizes the pump-out boats. Now, that company also in other states, and I think maybe other parts of Florida, but I'm not sure, they also do those floating restrooms. But it was discussed during their discussion to get our support, but that is not anything that has been presented to the City of Destin. It's not anything that the council has discussed or considered. Floating restrooms is not before the Destin City Council. We just gave support to the pump-out boats.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Five minutes after is pretty good. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming, and hopefully that as we do a better job of going through the process, that more and more of you will attend. Encourage your friends and family, whether even if there's not anything controversial, just so they can understand the things that this council and that our city staff do and how the city's managed. I think the more they can participate in this public process, the better we will do as a council, and the better staff can do as well. So with that being said, I would like to say this meeting is adjourned.